Hello, podcast fans. This is Jason Burnett from the Archie Bray Foundation. Listen, we are celebrating the second birthday of our Brickyard Podcast Network with an online auction and fundraiser. 16 artists have donated work to help us raise money to support the network. If you are a fan of our podcasts, don't miss this chance to buy work from Sarah Pike, Roberta Lugo, Adrian Iliadis, Michael Klein, and many others. Every winning bid goes to support programming at the Bray. Bidding will start on the network's birthday, August 16th, and will run to August 19th. To find out more, visit us at givergy.us/thebray, brick by brick.
Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com. Welcome back to episode 477 of the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Today on the show, I am talking with artist, curator, and podcaster Adam Chau. We talk about using artificial intelligence to generate faux historical images and how this work might help reshape the way that we think about history. We also discuss season 2 of his podcast Trade Secret, which is out now on any platform that you might listen to your podcasts, as well as the work that he does as director of exhibitions for NCECA. To see images of his work, you can visit adamchau.com. Without further ado, we'll get to the interview. Well, actually, this is a good place to start. So, in your career, you've kind of vacillated between really heavy processes in which you're painting, like we were just talking about, you're painting images. And then on the opposite end, you developed a machine with calligraphy that uses a mechanical interface. So you're kind of working at the extremes. What is it about the high touch and low touch method of drawing or making that's interesting to you?
That's a really great question because I don't even know. I feel like I just choose the process that is both conceptually resonant with me and then will get the job done. And I feel like people know this. I'm like super frugal. I'm a cheap person when it comes to my studio. I like pinch pennies, and I like every pound of clay I account for in terms of price. And it's just like sometimes painting is cheaper, and about efficiency with the CNC machine work that I was doing, like that was a way to be efficient as well. So I guess I do it all. But what I do, I feel like I go into a deep dive, right? It's like, it is an extreme. I use a 1mm paintbrush, or I use a robotic arm, or I choose to do decals because it's conceptually resonant. Like the decals aren't just a regular old decal, right? It's like this conceptual thing about how artificial intelligence can dictate how we think, essentially, or also imagining different ways of making. Like I would say, like, the artificial intelligence can make things that I would never be able to dream up.
Well, I want to go back to the CNC, which I think we talked about that process years ago when you did an interview, so people can listen back to that. But I did want to think about, like you mentioned, you're frugal or you're efficient. I like to think about it as you're efficient. And with the CNC, you developed it so that when a brush is attached to it, it's the exact right amount of pressure to make a brush mark. But what you can't tell is that a machine has made it. Like when I look at all that work, it looks like you painted it. There's something interesting about that relative to AI. There are some hallmarks. Like you can kind of tell AI at this point there's something happening.
The uncanny valley. And I would say with the CNC work, that was the problem. And that's why I deviated a little bit away from the CNC work, because I was so interested in expressing that this was a collaboration with digital technology, and I would have to stand by my work every single exhibition describing how I made it, or I would be in a show and they would want to play a video of it, which was fine. It just got a little bit in the way of appreciating the work as the work. And I was just trying to strategize ways to kind of talk about digital technology, digital culture, without having to say it with words, because the point of art or visual art is to see it. There is a podcast in Trade Secret about how words can also feed into the work. That was with Paul Scott into research. However, for me, I need a way to talk about these conceptual issues in the work directly. Like, you can see the work and then kind of make some judgments from there. For example, what I'm making with AI are almost always, for now, leading up to this point right now, they're figures. And sometimes I leave them with 6 fingers, 7 fingers, 10 fingers on one hand, to make it just a little bit awkward. Or, the first one I ever posted on Instagram was someone with um, 2 forearms, and it was really uncanny. And I loved that. I don't want to trick people per se into thinking that my work, it's supposed to look old, but I don't want them to think that it really is like legitimate, like in a legitimate antique. I want them to know that there is a story behind it. There's a reason why that person has 6 fingers, because it questions reality.
This idea that the work questions reality is something that artists have done going back all the way to photography, like really early photography. This was kind of part of the thing. So how are you interested in that, getting the viewer to question their reality?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in looking at history as a way to jump forward, but also questioning history and imagining. I really love that word now, imagining. It's because it's the prompts that you use in this software that both Carol Epp and I use. It's called Midjourney, and you have to type in /imagine in order to start the image generation. And I love that word because I want to imagine a past, present, and future where homosexuality is celebrated. And, I've always thought in my mind, like, even in grad school, like, what would happen if a Song Dynasty potter made pottery today in the 21st century? I love that question. And I just kind of think, what if, um, you know, gay artists and just gay people were out in the public and it wasn't a big deal? Would we be putting them on our dinnerware? Would we be kind of seeing that iconography, seeing those symbols out in the everyday? And I kind of want to I want to suspend your understanding of history and look at these pieces and really question, what if 500 years ago, you know, gay gay relationships were normalized, and how would we see the objects around us then? So this whole series is about that. I purposely make it blue and white. I purposely have a Ming Dynasty slant to it. Um, for now, I mean, I'm working on a sub series, but for now, because it's like drawing from my personal interests, they're all what am I trying to say? They're all men. They're all gay men, embracing. And yeah, I've come across this article about fictionalized histories. They call it counterfactualism, and I like that word. If you take the judgment away from it, that kind of, you can go into kind of disinformation or kind of uh historic erasure. But counterfactualism, I think, is just a way to talk about fiction that questions history and saying, what if? It's the what if question. And I really love that.
How much do you know about the Ming Dynasty, Qing, any of that latter kind of part of the dynasties in terms of gay life? What was happening then, or what's been documented? Do you know?
Again, I have no idea. All I kind of have been researching or have gravitated towards is not like imperial wares. Or I really gravitate towards funky Qing Dynasty pots where it kind of shows everyday life or kind of, I would say, like silly life. Like I really like silly and fun things. I really gravitate towards that. So that's really what I look at. I look at the casualness of the imagery. I really love that, and that spawned kind of the idea of the CNC work. It's so spontaneous. I wouldn't say it's gestural, not casual, but that's what it's been inspired by. This series of plate, I kind of want no context with it. I'm completely fine once it goes out into the world and I die and someone like goes into a Goodwill or like maybe it's at a museum. Who knows? Both extremes. And there's no context around it. And I love that I'm creating these images and I'm purposely composing them in an aesthetically pleasing way, but there's no real history behind it. It's all fiction. It's all artificial. Um, but I kind of love that you can make your own story from it, or you can dream about, oh, what are these two men doing together in this beautiful scenery? Usually they're like outdoorsy nature types. There's like floral imagery all around them on most of them because I plug in Ming Dynasty, blue and white porcelain. That's what the AI generates. And I really love that I want people to stumble on it, just to like, it's almost like you're stumbling and you just have like 10,000 questions about why are they wearing that? Why are they embracing? Who are they? And there are no answers.
One of the things that gives this, and I want to say credence, because the work is the work, like you're making real art with AI. But one of the things that gives it credence in the ceramic world is that it's blue and white. And so it fits into the larger body of work. Like you've been using blue and white the whole time I've known you. I think it's been blue and white of some form or the other. So can you talk about this idea of, by you choosing that color scheme, that it does give it the prestige that comes with that tradition?
I fully acknowledge the prestige that comes with it. I did it as a parameter. I did it for two reasons. One, I just really felt like I needed to focus on something and really go deep in my research because I went to school for design. It was all about research. So I really felt that this is something that I could sink my teeth into. Context is so, like I said, I want people to stumble on it. However, that does not mean that they don't have their own biases or understanding of the aesthetics that I'm using, and that I have used forever. As it's supposed to look a little Asian, it's supposed to look a little historic, it's supposed to look usually, I would say I have very clean silhouettes. That is conscious of me to use. That's a design solution. um, the aesthetic that I use has been dialed in to say what I want. I will also mention that I'm not the first person to like fictionalize stories with decals on porcelain plates. Like I draw major inspiration from Howard Kotler, who has coded queer culture in his porcelain blank work. I think he called it some of it was the Drip Dry series. He called it the Supperware series. Basically, he was taking commercial porcelain pots with silver rims, and I do that specifically because of Kotler. I buy these porcelain blanks with a silver rim as an homage to him. I've used silver throughout my career because I also think it works very well with blue being a cool color. My very early work, I used gold because I didn't know better. And there was always this weird tension between this warm yellow gold and the blue, like the cool blue. But yeah, I draw from Asian culture, I draw from queer culture and history, especially Kotler.
Can you explain how AI works in terms of you give it a prompt and then what happens?
Sure. So this actually, I really want to refer to the episode with Carol Epp that I had. She explains it very well. However, I will add to that being that AI basically uses prompts that you give it in order to scan a data set. Those data sets pile of like millions of pictures with captions on them. So it essentially learns what a cat is, what a pair of glasses are. And based on the prompts that you put in, it searches that and pretty much seamlessly composes many images for you. The program that we use, Midjourney, spits out 4 images. From there, you can refine a single image, or you can choose another image and make variations of that that are very similar. But like maybe, oh, you don't like the position of an arm and you just need it to change a little bit. There is, there can be a lot of control, or you can relinquish all control. For example, I could tell the AI that I want a figure with long sleeves, right? Or I can just type in figure, and it will do both. I can also set up hierarchies through a little bit of very simple code, and I can also change the aesthetic. So, for example, if I say I want an illustration of 2 gay men in love, I can say that, which I do, but I can also say in the style of Ming Dynasty porcelain, in the style of abstraction, something like that. One thing Carol and I talked about is just the ethics of not using contemporary artist names. Like I would never say in the style of Damien Hirst, right? Or in the style of even like Frida Kahlo, or something like that. I think there are ethics that are coming out of this. Um, yeah, that's how it works. And I've seen people, because there are public channels, people just write one word and will have things come out. Like they'll write insanity just to see what will come out. But then other people will be like like write 3 paragraphs of what they want to get exactly what they want. So it is a spectrum.
One of the things you and Carol talked about in the interview you did for your podcast, Trade Secret, is that the company owns or the copyright is confusing because it seems like that you then share the copyright, you as the prompter, with the software company. Is that right?
That is correct. I haven't gone into like the whole legality of it. So it's a little bit weird because I believe they own the image, but when you say they own, they might own the prompt. However, I think what was not clear on the episode that I recorded, and that Carol, I just didn't think to really dig in until I saw the software. Even if you put the same prompt in exactly the next day or a week later or a month later, you will get a slightly different image. Um, so I think that's also fascinating that you can't necessarily duplicate like pixel by pixel the same image. You can get very close, but it will never be exactly the same.
Yeah, and there's something about this obviously, you're collaborating with AI because that's what you're signing up for when you download the software. But you're also collaborating with the data set, which is made up with tons and tons and tons of images. Like, they probably don't disclose how big the data set is, right?
They do not. At first, when I first started, I was under the impression that it was on like it was searching the whole internet. There was like, access to everything. I'm not actually sure. Another thing that Carol brought up was the idea of representation, and that it defaults to whiteness, or if you have figures, they are automatically or 80% of the time white. I have read some articles where yes, she put it in a nutshell as like AI is racist, right? I would like to clarify that even more into saying that since it's using this data set, it's actually a reflection of us, and that we have major problems, right? That we are being systemically racist, that it's just a mirror. The AI doesn't know better. So it's only pulling from what it sees. So I think it's easy to kind of say that this like non-human entity is doing something bad, but actually we need to look at ourselves and what we're doing. Another thing about the data set is that I've heard a rumor that there are some AI, like word-based AI data sets. I don't know if it's Chat GPT that like don't know about the January 6th insurrection, right? So you could write like tell me about political uprisings or something like that. Because it hasn't been updated and it doesn't have that news, you will not get that context of like um of news. I will say this is a disclaimer. It was a rumor. I can't validate that. I don't know these data sets, but if you're interested in it, please do your own research about what data sets are being used, how updated they are. Um, yeah, and I will also say, apparently, depending on what language you use, I've heard with the image-based AI, for example, if you put the same thing I'm putting in Japanese, you will get a different result.
I'm glad you said that because I was actually thinking about if you used a VPN so that your IP would be in a different country, do you get a different subset of images? Which it sounds like you do if you put in a different language.
For Midjourney, yes, it's been confirmed that you will get a different result.
There's something about this that's a gigantic social experiment in terms of thinking about the collective whole of the internet shapes how we think about a topic. You could also say that the internet itself is racist if it is a not an accurate depiction of actual reality, but the internet itself is a subset of information, which by default is true because the early internet was literally universities worth of information connecting to other universities of information.
Yeah, I think it's about access, accessing the internet. I think with these data sets, it's making sure everyone has the ability to put in what they want, so it's accessible. I will also say, this is a little too deep for me, but like the captioning of images, I think maybe there might need to be some resolution with captioning things.
Have you shown any of this in galleries yet?
No, it has not. I haven't even sold a single one. I've kind of been hoarding them. Like I just don't know. It's so new. I think there is interest in it. There has been interest from people that, I haven't really connected with before that want to show it, that are interested in purchasing it. I'm just in the research phase of like, I think they're quite exquisite. This is, I think, some of my strongest work that I've ever made. I just don't know, like, should it be in a retail shop? Should I exclusively have it for competitions? Should it be in a museum? Should it be, all of those, w- where can it live? Like, what's the value of it? It's also so new. I don't have a understanding of its value, which was really difficult. And, when I first started ceramics, it was the same way. And I encourage people that are starting out to um, really look at their work and like sit down and really say, what is the value of this? What is the value of my time? What's the literal value of the material? Like I said before, I pinch pennies. I know what my baseline is for material to make these plates. Um, I calculate I pay for Midjourney. It's not free. Um, yeah, and then seeing what the market can bear. But I haven't done that yet.
Well,
I'm
see, I
just in the making
wonder
phase.
how you might frame it for, because I could see these going two ways. Like, I feel like in a design shop in New York City, you could probably sell these as sets and sell tons and tons of them and rely on your design background and really go that way. Or the way you arrange them and the way you give context through writing, they could be in a museum or in a exhibition space. Do you have a sense as the artist that one is better than the other with this body of work?
I can see it as both, but this is the first time I've really felt like this. And I've had this thought before of like where the work will be once I'm gone, but actively when I'm making it, I'm just so excited to like be like, where is this going to be in 200 years where someone's going to be, what the hell? What is this? I'm just so excited for the uncontext of it, the non-context of it. Um, I can see it everywhere. I can see it in like some grandpa's like attic, right? And like someone randomly finds it, but then I can also see it at the V&A. Um, you know, I think it's endless, but I also go back to, like I said before, I heavily researched Kotler, and I've heard that Kotler also made decals that he put on like paper plates and sold them at craft fairs. So there was this high-low thing happening as well. So I think it could fit into everywhere. My gut, I mean, obviously I want to make money. So the place where I can get the highest value for it, sure. But yeah, I'm not, it's just so new. We'll see. We'll see where it lands.
Well, I've got one more question about this, and then we're going to switch topics. One of the early posts, because I was scrolling back through your Instagram, and you had used the AI to make the decal. You had fired the plate. You were taking a picture of the plate, and your caption was, "Is this real?"
Yeah.
And it goes back to this idea of at what point, is it real is one question. The next thing is it real art? That's kind of the thing that I wonder what you're thinking about it.
Yeah. So my thinking was actually inspired by Rene Magritte. Is this a pipe? The artwork where he really questions the symbology versus language versus physical space. One, I wrote that post because I didn't want people to dismiss it as just an AI image. There was a little bit of fear with that. And I wanted to say, no, I'm bringing it into reality. I think this is really interesting that I can make the picture and be satisfied with the picture, but I'm going a step further and I really want to kind of see it through. So it was important for me to communicate that this lives in physical space as well as a digital image. I'm also fully aware that a lot of consumption, I would say 90% of the consumption of my work is online, is an image, right? I think that's interesting. I think that I've pulled it from the screen into reality, but then I'm putting it back on the screen. Is just this really interesting conversation to me, which is less, is it real? But more like you said, is it art? But like, what has more value? The picture, the fact that I'm getting likes for it, the fact that, I did it in the first place. I just think it's interesting. Like, where does it live? Does it live on the internet? Does it live? It does live in reality, but it's also living in my basement. So is the purpose for it to be spread online?
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Greg, supervisor of crude clay production at Amoco. We are proud to supply clay for your studio or classroom. This episode is brought to you by Amoco Brent. Find Amoco clay, glazes, and equipment at your local Amoco distributor.
Hi, I'm Justin Rothshank, and I'm here to invite you to the 12th annual Michiana Pottery Tour, happening on September 23 and 24 in northern Indiana and southern Michigan. You'll find a list of the more than 50 participating artists, links to their web stores, and more information at www.michianapotterytour.com or on our Instagram page at Michiana Pottery Tour. Michiana Pottery Tour is a program of the new Northern Indiana Clay Alliance. We hope to see you this fall.
Well, I wanted to switch gears and talk about your podcast. You've finished up the second season of Trade Secret, and you're on the Brickyard Network, and it's been amazing to watch your show kind of evolve over time. Sometimes it evolves for practical reasons, and sometimes it evolves for what I think of as being distilling. Like it seems like you're distilling your idea of what the show is. So can you explain just how that process has been? Kind of like what your idea was in the beginning, season one, and what you've learned now that you've done 26 episodes.
Yeah. So for the first season, I really wanted to bring together kind of a small group to discuss a certain topic. So we invited two people at a time to come and talk about specific things like the multiple or curation or context. One of my favorites was with Namita Gupta-Wiggers and Garth Clark from season one. That was excellent. And then I just thought distilling is a really good word because I wanted to kind of plunge a little bit even more deeper in order to facilitate a conversation, especially for emerging artists coming into the field. because I'm really looking at the next generation and how are they getting their information about how to survive, as an artist. And a lot of the topics, most of them are geared towards people having a little bit of a taste into that topic and how to manage it. So for me, it was really important actually to have Judith Weber come on and talk about industrial design and being a designer. I think that story hasn't necessarily been told to the craft circle. I think people in the public know it because it was at Tivana, right? She sold it for 10 years. It was highly successful as a teapot. But I think that story needed to be told to people interested in design because I didn't really get that when I went for my BFA. I didn't have that template or that person to tell me, this is what I did, this is what you can do, this is what's possible. So each episode really goes into kind of like a profession. We have the designer, the researcher, the student, even. What was it like to be a student in this age? People that are just really interested, maybe going to school, like what are the options? What happens when you want to be a full-time potter? That was Dita Mert. What happens if you want to be a potter, but don't want to sell pots to make your rent? That was Mike Stumbris. I think that was really important also to talk about, hey, I want to make pots, but I don't actually want to survive off of that. What is a way to do that? And I really thought that, Mike's episode was particularly good as well to talk about strategies. And then Dietem also having the pot of the month. I think it was cup of the month club. I thought that was genius. So yeah, they're little, I feel like kind of like tips and tricks of the trade, secrets of the trade.
Well, the second season also, because it's no longer two people talking with you, it's one person, it's just you and one person. One of the things that happens is that the conversation ends for them faster than they think. And it's because you come in with a plan, you ask your questions because you have your idea of what you want to know from them. And it's funny at the end, I can tell by listening, at the end, some of them wanted to talk more to try to explain themselves more, but they had answered your questions, so that it's over.
Yeah, and I remember there's probably one or two that I actually think we cut like probably 50%, 30 to 50% of the recording. That was really important to me because as an avid podcast listener, I'm actually leaning towards short form and shorter time. So I think no episode is over 30 minutes. They're around that mark. I think the first season kind of ended up being more like 45. There might have been an hour here and there. I really want to make sure people can get what they want efficiently and not like wade through like long drawn out conversations. And this is just how I am in meetings too. Like getting to the point, really going into the content and the meat of the subject and making sure that it's, digestible for an audience. I listen to Pop Culture Happy Hour, and I think that's when you first came to me with this proposal, you had mentioned that, and I had never heard of it. And to this day, I listen to it every single day. It's 20 minutes. It's great. Sometimes it's like 15.
Yeah, and I can say on the back end of editing these episodes, listening to these episodes, being a part of like the production process, I love the idea that you're prompting research. And I mean, you talk about that with Paul Scott, like how research, actually you talk about that with a couple people, but just like how one idea becomes another idea and then that becomes more ideas. And I think the second season is that. It's like all these little prompts. Like in some ways, it kind of goes back to AI. Like you're going to start with this core idea, and then hopefully the listener listens and then jumps into their own studio or however they want to do their research. But I wanted to talk about the taping you did in NCECA, which I thought was, for one, really fun because it was with a lot of live audience, but also because you got to talk about your experience with the Color Network with friends of yours. Natalia was there. I'm trying to think of who else was on that
Magdalene
panel.
and Robin.
And Robin, right.
Yeah.
It felt more like season one. Like it was kind of the old school way of like, let's just talk. But there were some really poignant moments in it. So I just wanted to kind of talk about your experience being with a live audience with them and what that was like.
Yeah. I love that also that Ruby Lopez Harper was in the crowd. So I could like point at her to talk about some of these topics to make it more of a group discussion, which I was planning to. I will say, the first season was a little chaotic, trying to manage everyone's expectations or two people talking to give them equal weight, that is a little bit difficult. It is a skill to make sure that everyone feels heard. It was fun. It's just having a full season of that is a little daunting. I'm happy it happened at NCECA because a lot of people came that a lot of discussions came out of it. And again, I may have alluded to my personality being kind of like rigid and just like get to the point, but I really felt like that NCECA episode allowed me to think about things a little bit in a more lofty way or kind of like follow the breadcrumbs. And I really enjoyed that. I think the audience also participated really well. So yeah, I think that was a great turnout.
Yeah, I hope people will go back and listen to that. I wanted to talk about what you're doing with NCECA now. You're a board member and you're working with exhibitions. So can you talk about what that is?
Sure. So this year is my first official year as the director of exhibitions with NCECA, which is a unpaid board position. In the last year, I have been a mentee. I've been kind of in training. So I attended NCECA meetings, board meetings, but I never had a vote. And now I am officially onboarded and can vote on agenda items. We meet twice a year and then also at NCECA to discuss what's happening. And my particular role is to look after the exhibitions. So there are three core exhibitions. There's the annual, there's the National Student Juried Exhibition, and then there's the Multicultural Fellowship Exhibition. There are also other exhibitions that happen, like the concurrent exhibitions that people apply for, the venue originated exhibitions, which galleries, apply for with a theme already in mind. And there are also sometimes exhibitions in the convention center, like the K through 12 student exhibition. So I look at all of that. I also look at programming also, but that's not, I just have my 2 cents, but like my 5 cents is in exhibitions. So my role is to identify the curator for all the core exhibitions, as well as assemble the panel and the jury that convenes for the concurrent exhibitions, as well as the venue originated, to make sure that they're good fits. We get many applications, but not enough galleries to put it in. So we have a rubric that we use. So it's kind of obviously the bubble up method that most people use. And I forget the number that we're shooting for this year for concurrent, but we bubble it up. There's first choice, and then we have kind of this like extra surplus choice sometimes of like maybe 3 to 5 exhibitions that we say you haven't made it to like the first rank, so you don't have a gallery committed, but we are working with galleries to see if something can happen.
Well, I'm interested in this year because I guess 3 years ago it was supposed to be in Richmond and then it got canceled. So how much did that carry over into your job? Like, did they give you a list of galleries or did you kind of have to restart?
Nothing carried over. So yeah, that's the one. We're getting emails all the time about this. And it should be said, this is not like a redo or a carbon copy of the last NCECA. All the major venues except for Viz Arts, I believe, I might be wrong about that, is different. The annual is in a different place, the Multicultural Fellowship Exhibition, different place. So it's a completely different conference. It has a different theme. So the annual actually in 2020 did happen. It had a group show invitees. Obviously, we were going to go. So the annual did happen. People did have a show. This is a completely different theme. We have new curators, new artists are coming in. So I would think of Richmond as a completely new city, a new experience. So that's how I would frame it.
On a practical level, like your day job is you're a curator. So that's one set of keeping track of artists, keeping track of objects. But then with this exhibition, it's like your day job multiplied out.
Oh, yeah.
With a long timeline. So how are you organizing all of this to keep it all on track and moving?
Yeah, so and NCECA actually has a staff, right? And there are staff members that help out, especially with the concurrent exhibitions and the contracts. So my role is more, I would say, oversight and governance. Also, the selection of the juror for these shows, the curators, and so I have oversight, but the kind of sending of contracts go out with staff, and then there are also on-site liaisons to every NCECA. We have two people that join the board that are from the host city that connects with these galleries. So what happens is we have the concurrent exhibition panel, which the on-sites are part of, and then once they're ranked, it's their job to play matchmaker. They're the little cupid that goes around and says, "Oh, I think this exhibition would be great here because, it has similar themes." It might be I think the last one in Cincinnati, we went to a plant store and there was like a planter exhibition that we accepted. So there are kind of those obvious pairings, and then also the size of the gallery, right? We might have a show with only 4 people in it, so we choose a small gallery, and then a show with 20, so we have a large gallery. So it's the on-sites play matchmaker, um, and then I'm more, yeah, just oversight.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. I know I saw you last in NCECA, and by the time you got there, even as just a board member, you were already, I think, at that moment feeling like, "Wow, this is a lot." So
Crazed.
Going into your second year, you're going to be a pro. It's going to be smooth. It's going to be easy.
I mean, I have all of my outfits planned out like a month in advance. They're all like laid out, kind of coordinated. Obviously, there may be some like emergency changes that happen, but like that's the last thing I want to think about. So I'm always like, what I'm wearing is what I'm wearing usually, like already planned out, so I don't have to think about it. And then I'm up and out the earliest than any other attendee, and then I'm the last to kind of like go in because there are meetings and there are just making sure everyone's having a good time and there's no like fires to put out, and just I also kind of look at the collectors tour. So there is a program where we have collectors that come maybe 1 or 2 days before the conference, and they go to all of the exhibitions that we select for them, and then they have like curators talks, things like that.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Richmond is a nice city. I'm from Virginia, so this is a little bit of like a homecoming in NCECA for me. Can you end by just plugging Trade Secret and letting people know where they can listen to it?
Yeah, so season 2 of Trade Secret is 13 episodes, and you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And then also, can you plug your social media too, so people can get in touch?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Adam Charles Chau, and my website is adamchau.com.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
I'd like to thank Adam for coming on the show and also for the good work that he does hosting Trade Secret. If you'd like to check out episodes of that, Season 2 is all available online right now, anywhere that you find podcasts. Also wanted to give a plug for the network's second birthday, which is coming up August the 16th. We're holding an online auction and fundraiser, so if you'd like to support the network, this is a great way to do it. We have 16 artists that have donated work, so make sure to check all of that out. And you can find out more about that at the Givergy link, which will be in the show notes. Before we go, I wanted to thank today's sponsors. That's Amico Brent, the Archie Bray Foundation, and the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. If you'd like to be a sponsor on the show, we would certainly welcome your support. You can get in touch at brickyardnetwork.org. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like more information on the artists on the show, or if you'd like more information about the workshops and events that I'll be having in the next couple months, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Carter Pottery. Another great way to support the show is to leave me a comment on iTunes. To do that, search Tales of a Red Clay Rambler under iTunes Podcasts, and you'll find a page that's linked to our show. Thank you guys for the support.
This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.